Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another frame game. Today I'm going to be going over Satisfactory. Now, I've been promising this review for a while and I've been trying to make it. I've actually written multiple scripts multiple times, but this game isn't, well, it's a survival-esque factory game, and it doesn't super fit well with the categories that I usually do. Especially when it comes to scripting, I'm just like, I don't know what to say fully, especially when it comes to the music. Music is a big thing in some of the reviews that I do, however, in this kind of game, kind of like Minecraft or other such survival games, Ark Survival Evolved for example, sometimes there just isn't music for long stretches of time, because you're just wandering around hearing your footsteps, hearing the machinery make noise, or in Ark's case, you're hearing your dinosaurs make noise or whatever, because it's more focused on the creation aspect, the open world aspect, stuff like that, not so much the music, whereas a game like Spider-Man, stuff like that, Marvel Spider-Man or Spyro, for example, are a bit more on the game-esque side that's all about, the game mechanics and the music, or it's more on the cinematic side like Spider-Man, where it's basically a game that's now a movie, you know what I mean? It's like a movie game, and so that has obviously a lot more music attuned to the game in general, but with an open world factory game, it just doesn't have that much. And so that was kind of hard to have an entire category that was almost based around nothing. You know what I mean? So instead of doing a normal review that I would usually script out, I'm doing this a lot more casually. I'm just kind of gonna talk about the game, what I liked about it, what I didn't like about it, and then give an overall, score for the game of what I liked. So with that being said, let's dive into this review. Now, I will say there are some things that I haven't done a lot with in the game, specifically the color gun. I haven't really colored anything throughout the game, none of my platforms and stuff. I just quickly built stuff, put things together, and then made a factory that was semi-functional. You know what I mean? I mean, sometimes I would go really crazy with my factory to make it as efficient as possible, but most of the time it was just kind of, let's get this stuff done so that I can get the next pieces or upgrades, stuff like that. So, with that being said, I didn't do much coloring or aesthetic type stuff, so some of these things I haven't really used much, and vehicles I used sometimes, but a lot of the time I was just doing conveyor belts. I'd say about 70 to 80% of the time I was just using conveyor belts on most things, because I didn't have to make them travel that far. So every once in a while I'd have vehicles for some stuff like oil or whatever, that that you had to bucket up or I guess create barrels of from far away, because those always seem to spawn way far away. Same with coal. Coal always seems to spawn way far away from iron and copper deposits. So in the end, I had to use vehicles for those things, but once I vehicled in those like 3 different things or 2 different things or whatever, then I would immediately be switching back to just using conveyor belts for everything else. So in the end, I guess I don't have that much experience using vehicles. I used it a bit driving around to explore, but when it came to setting up paths to have stuff be brought in and then brought back or whatever, I only used vehicles maybe twice or 3 times. So I can't say much about that aspect. I will say that the car is ridiculous. It's like super broken, okay? So me and my cousin played some multiplayer in Satisfactory, tried making a bit of a video and it was completely broken, so I just kind of showed the aftermath of our factory since the recording didn't work properly. But we did play some multiplayer and the car is just, or the truck I guess, is just super broken. So, or tractor, that's the one. It's called the tractor, and then there's the truck, and then there's the Explorer. But the tractor is crazy. So when you're setting up an auto path for the thing, you gotta be extra careful, because little tiny things like rocks or bushes, whatever the crap, can sometimes really mess up the vehicle and bounce it off of its path that you created. And so you gotta be extra careful where you're driving with it, because once you're off the vehicle seems to have different physics as to when you're driving the vehicle yourself. It's a little weird. Also, you gotta be careful with ramps, because when you create a path for the truck does not go the speed that you're driving. It just always goes at max speed all the time. So you can imagine that if you have a really steep hill and you just go straight down it during your tracking, but you're going kind of slow because you know that if you go too fast, it'll speed up like crazy and go launching off the edge. But then you realize, oh no, I created a path for it and it goes at max speed all the time. So when it goes down that ramp, it just goes foam and flies off the other side. So ramps can be kind of tricky. You gotta swivel a lot to make sure that the truck stays at a slower pace, but you don't want to swivel too much because then it might go off the side of your ramp. It was kind of a tricky thing. Eventually we just built walls so that it would bounce into it, you know, without flying off, because we had to build like platforms, and there was this thing that we were trying to get a truck to bring back to base, but it was crazy far away and up on a very high cliff. So we decided instead of having the truck drive all the way around, we're going to build this giant ramp that goes all the way up the cliff. And then we're going to have the tractor, get the stuff and then come back down that ramp to our base and then go back up it. But then that's where the problems began, was the ramp was so giant and steep that the tractor just started going at crazy high speeds and flew off the side. So we had to build walls and stuff so that it wouldn't fall off the platforms, you know, and then end up getting a little lost. So once we figured out to build walls and stuff like that, it became a lot better. But tractors are crazy. We also discovered that if you manage to flip a tractor, like if you make it roll off a cliff or something so that it flips upside down, you could do some crazy stuff with it. Me and my cousin, we would stand on top of the flipped truck, aim down and press E on it. And it just, because when you press E on an upside down truck or tractor or whatever, it's supposed to upright it. You know, it's supposed to flip it back into its proper position. So when you do that while standing on top of it, it ragdolls your body, but it also glitches the truck. It's like, oh, there's an object in the way. And so it tries to like warp it through you or something, through your character. That's my best guess. I don't really know what's happening, but that's kind of my theory right now, is that it's like detecting a collision while trying to upright itself, and so it just kind of teleports through that object or something like that, and it goes flying like hundreds of feet into the air, and then you ragdoll into the air too. However, it goes up if it goes up high enough and you don't ragdoll very high, it'll stop rendering the tractor and it'll just kind of stay up in the sky forever. And so you have to build a ramp staircase up to load it back in, and once it loads back in, then it'll fall back down to the ground. However, there were some instances where we would get hit by the truck and ragdoll and go flying hundreds of feet into the air with the truck, like parallel. And so the truck just kept going, and you just kept going, and you would fly about 50% across the entire map and land somewhere that you have no idea where the crap you are, surrounded by monsters or whatever, and your truck is who knows where, gets stuck on a giant cliff, and you're like, great, now I gotta figure out how to get to that truck or tractor or whatever you're using that you've glitchily flipped over. So there's some funny glitches in this game that you can do with the tractors and trucks and stuff. They were fun to mess with, that's for sure, but like I said, with the pathing stuff, I only did it a few times. One time with that giant ramp, and then just another time on some flat ground going a long distance to get coal. So yeah, I don't have that much experience with the pathing stuff like that, but I do have experience, or a little bit of experience, should I say, with it, as well as some experience of driving around the vehicles and glitching them out like crazy. Other than that, there was some fun, cool stuff in this game. Like, I just love the beginning drill that you get. It's just this little tiny handheld thing. I say tiny, but it's actually pretty big when you think about it. It must be really heavy. I don't even know how to describe it. It's really big and proportionate to your character's body, but you put it down and it's only spider legs come out and it like stands up, and then a drill comes out of the bottom and then it starts drilling passively, and you can go and you can just grab ore out of it and then, you know, manually smelt it or whatever. But then of course you get the better and bigger stuff like the mining drills and stuff like that. The mining drill Mark II. You know, the mining drill Mark II, I think it just goes a lot faster, and that's about it. But, I mean, if you're getting a mining drill 2, you definitely want to have the faster conveyor belts. Otherwise, you can't even utilize the mining drill 2, you know, Mark II or whatever, to its fullest potential. So, those were fun to mess with and to learn their capabilities when it came to how much, you know, furnaces they can feed per bits of iron or copper or whatever that they drill up. And so depending on that, that's how many splitters and stuff you would make coming out of the individual ones, and then you get faster belts and you get the Mark II, and you're like, oh my goodness, now instead of only being able to feed like 2 or 3 furnaces, or I think it was more than that for the first one, but like the Mark II can feed like triple of the amount of the Mark I or something. Like, it goes so much better, more efficient, and faster than the first one. Though the upgrading unlock system can be a little difficult at times. Every once in a while I'll get a thing that it's like, now you gotta do this in order to unlock the next set of machinery and stuff like that. And I'm like, holy crap, how do I even get that, you know? I found myself wanting to go to the wiki a few times, but luckily in-game, it has a pretty good, like, system that shows you how you make certain components and stuff like that and where they're made, so you don't have to go to wiki anywhere near as often as other games that are survival games such as Minecraft. For example, Minecraft, it's like, I gotta constantly go to wiki to find out how I make this thing again in the crafting bench. Of course they upgraded that too, that now you can, you know, see the way that things are crafted or whatever with this like crafting manual thing that's in your inventory, so they improved on that, that's for sure. But this game's pretty good about that. I only had to go to the wiki maybe once or twice, and that's just when I was confused about something, but I realized I was making a different kind of box frame compared to the frame that I actually needed or whatever the crap. So I was like, oh, I'm stupid, you know? It was just me being dumb. But most of the time, it was very straightforward and just, you know, logical to say the least. So the gameplay was a lot of fun. I will say the combat isn't that great. There are these tiger things that are everywhere that they just start running around you in circles really fast. And so you gotta kind of run in circles too to try to intercept them, to hit them and all this stuff. And at times it can get kind of awkward, you know, kind of cumbersome and inconvenient. But eventually, you know, you get better weapons and stuff, and it makes it easier. You get a rebar gun, that's the one that I like the most. But I kind of wish there was a blade weapon or something that you slice instead of jab with a taser or whatever the crap it is. You know, I kind of wanted to slice and dice the monsters more than just jabby stab. And whenever you zapped them with that thing, you'd also punch too, and I was like, you have this zapping tool. Why are you punching him in the face? You know, I feel like the zapper is going to do way more damage, especially against these hard-shelled lion creatures, but, you know, whatever. So the combat was okay. There isn't that many options to pick from for combat. There's like 3 different weapons right now or something like that. Hopefully they'll add more. I mean, I'm sure they will add more. They've been improving the game quite a bit since its initial like beta launch where they gave free keys to a bunch of random people for a little bit. Me being one of them, that I got to play it before it came out. It wasn't very long. It was like 3 or 4 days before it came out, but still, once it came out, it was like, oh man, there's 3 more tiers and there's all this other stuff to do. So they've been improving it quite a bit and it's been getting a lot better. But I am hoping for more weapons and other such tools because as of right now, it's a little sparse. You know what I mean? But other than that, it's been fun. I'd say the combat is like a midway rating for me. You know, it was like, I didn't hate it, I didn't love it. You know, it was a half and half kind of thing. If I were to give it a slime rating, you know, it'd be like 3 and maybe, I don't know, 2.5, 3 star, or slime, sorry. my rating slimes, not stars, what am I saying? But, you know what I mean. Aside from that, the game, like, the aesthetics of everything in the game, how they work, how they function, what they look like when they're doing their function, is really cool. So, especially when you first build the space elevator, this thing has these arms that are coming out and they kind of open up, they're like, and then they grip onto this other thing and push it up, and then the elevator comes down. There's lights all over it, and you can see it way up in the sky, and you kind of use it as a beacon to always find your base at that point. But some of the machinery stuff and their setting up, as well as just running while making stuff, are really cool. The animations are very interesting, and then they also have quite a few particle effects of like sparks and things, or the animation where there's like this crusher thing is like smashing down onto the iron plates as they go through and stuff like that. It's really cool. And then they have these things that are these landing pads where you make these jumper pads to launch yourself up into the air, and you can use that to get up to places faster. And then there's these landing things that like create this green, I'm not sure what to call it, anti-grav field, I guess. And you launch up in the pad, and then you land in that, and you float down softly. However, if you miss it, odds are you're gonna die. But, you know, it's the danger that makes it more fun, right? But anyways, so a lot of the visual effects, the particle effects, stuff like that are really, really well done. I was super impressed, especially with it being like an early access game. It was like, holy cow, this is so much better than I was expecting. And just whenever you finish an upgrade with your ship and then it flies up in outer space, just the rockets start blasting off, it unlatches slowly, and then it kind of moves and flies up, does a couple of swirls in the air. Like, it's really cool and fun to watch. Everything is fun to watch. The conveyor belts moving, the items on top of them, the machines crushing them. You know, just everything is super satisfying. Ha ha ha. Okay, so yeah. I mean, those aspects of the game are fantastic. And the large world that you can go around, and there's like different areas. There's like this grassland, and then there's like a desert tundra thing, and then there's like this gross purple swamplands or whatever. That made it very interesting and a lot more fun. Especially since with the game that was released, you can also like choose your spawn points. You can spawn in the harder areas first. And me and my cousin tried that, and we spawned in the tundra area, which is kind of annoying because there aren't as many plants for biofuel. So every once in a while you're like, great, I gotta travel ages to get to this biofuel stuff so that I can power my factory. But, you know, obviously the green zone is meant to be the easy zone. And then, of course, you go to the purple area, and there's these giant horse-like monsters that spit at you, and they're super hard to kill. Very annoying. It's a little better when you have a big truck or something. You run them over, they kind of ragdoll, and then you jump off, beat them up. But yeah, it can be kind of difficult without a ranged weapon, that's for sure. Gotta run in circles a lot. But they also seem to have splash damage. Speaking of which, some of the enemies and creatures in the world are really cool. There's like this giant flying jelly, gosh, I don't know how to explain it. It's like a manta ray, I guess, that's like gelatin or something, and it's just giant bird-like creature flying through the sky. And there's these little ones too that kind of fly around it and stuff, and you'll see them flying around all over the place, and they're really cool and fun to look at. And then they have these big old air balloon elephant things with tiny spindly legs, and those are fun too, because if you punch them or zap them, they start running away really fast. But you can also run them over with vehicles like tractors and stuff, and they just kind of flop over on the ground. And then if you manage to kill one, which is difficult, but it is possible, if you manage to kill one and then you jump up onto its body, it's like a trampoline. Like, it's super bouncy and it launches you way up into the air. So those were a lot of fun. Really cool creatures to mess with. Like I said, the lion ones aren't that interesting. They just run around in circles really fast. I kind of wish they did more. But they can be difficult at times, but then, at least when you first start, but then once you get used to them, they become really easy to kill. So, you know, even with the weakest weapon, it just takes a little bit of time. And then you get a stronger weapon, and you're like killing these things in 2 or 3 hits, and you're like, wow, these guys are pathetic, you know? But, so some of the creatures in this game are really cool. I hope that they add more so that there's a greater variety, because there isn't that much. There's like these weird plant things too that release bugs that explode on you. Those are kind of cool. They're super annoying to kill with melee and ranged, honestly. They're really small and they fly around like crazy. So they could be pretty difficult and intense. So those ones are always fun to run into. Aside from that, we have like foliage throughout the world. There's different plants and bushes, trees that you can chop down once you get a chainsaw. And then there's like those plant things that release the bugs that I was just talking about. And there's also these toxic poison plants that you get too close and they release this green gaseous form that slowly starts to kill you. Now, those are pretty cool, but they're also super deadly. You gotta get a gas mask and all this other stuff in order to survive better. But, you know, other than that, the scenery of things and whatnot, these weird plants that like make noises and speak to you when you get close to them, they exist too, and they're all glowy red, and those things are creepy. So the plant foliage and stuff is really good in this game, and very varied. I was surprised how many different variations of things there were, especially for such an early access game. And when you go into different biomes, like the sludge biome and stuff, tree leaves and things like that are different colors. So overall, it just gets really interesting and really cool. And like I said with the sound, I wasn't really sure what to say about it because that isn't really one of the main focuses of the game. You know, as I was saying, with a story-driven game or something, obviously music is going to be a big thing. Or horror, sound effects and stuff like that are going to be a major component. But with this, a lot of the time it's just the silent sound effects of your machinery. Which I will say the sound effects of the machinery and stuff are really, really good and really satisfying. And I just love sometimes just looking at my factory, listening to all of it, like, hum or whatever, so to speak. It's kind of like when you have the, I don't know, like clocks ticking and stuff like that. If you're used to stuff like that, it could be very relaxing. You're like, oh, I love hearing that ticking clock or whatever. But then if you get rid of that thing, it could be like hard to sleep or something because you're so used to hearing it every night that you go to bed. It's kind of those kind of background humming noises of machinery zapping stuff or crushing stuff, you know, as the belts move along, that you get super used to after a while, to the point that you just like listening to it. You know, you like hanging around in your base and you're like, ah, yeah, this is good. And then you go out somewhere adventuring to look for different different mineral deposits and stuff like that, and you're all, oh man, I sure miss the sound of my factory. So that was really good. The music I can't really say, because once again, every once in a while there's music, and then every once in a while it stops, and it's just hard to get a good beat and hear the music unless you just purposely sit around. But I feel like some music cues don't occur unless you're moving around and entering different biomes or whatever. So it was just hard to rate that. You know what I mean? But I will say, overall, this game was super fun in a lot of ways, both single player and multiplayer. Though multiplayer was a little buggy at times, it was a lot of fun. So I think I'm going to give this game a 4 out of 5 slimes. I would like to give it a perfect, but like I was saying, you know, there's not enough melee, like, picks and stuff like that, as well as, you know, once you beat the game, you know, you're just kind of done, and it's earlier access, they're trying to add more. But until then, you know, this is what we got. So once they add more, hopefully add more melee weapons, stabilize more of the multiplayer so it's less buggy. Right now they suggest only having up to 3 or 4 people in a world. I mean, people have tried more and it super breaks the game. Even when I was only playing with one other person, my cousin Craig, it would really lag out sometimes, and my game even crashed a few times whilst joining his world. So it's a little unstable with the multiplayer. So once those things are fixed, I'd be much more comfortable with giving it a perfect score, but as of right now, it's still a lot of fun, very satisfying, and therefore I'm going to give it the 4 out of 5 slimes. So thank you all so much for watching. You know, if you have a different opinion about the game, maybe you hated it, or maybe you wish that they would add certain things, you know, let me know down in the comments below. You know, just talk about it. Maybe we can come up with some awesome features, and maybe eventually they'll add them in the game. We can suggest to the developers, hey, maybe you should add an exosuit that lets you jetpack around from, you know, plateau to plateau or something. But, you know, until then, I will see you all in the next video. Bye!